What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast from the Action Network and Fantasy Labs. I'm your host, Chris Raybon. We're up to week 14. We've gotten past Thanksgiving, and we're going to talk waivers. Hopefully, you got your season wrapped up, but I know there's some people that's still kind of on the fringe of that playoff contention here, so we still got you covered. And as always, I'll be joined by one of the most accurate rankers in the game, Sean Koerner, in just a moment. A quick reminder, all of our fantasy football content is available right now over at fantasylabs.com. Fantasy Labs NFL includes in-season rankings, waiver wire tips, DFS models, tools, and more. Make sure to use code FLEX20 to get $20 off at fantasylabs.com/flex. Koerner, what's going on? We got dogs sleeping in the background. We got, just lots of things going on right now. How you feeling?
Yeah, she's all set. She already made the playoffs, so she doesn't care about this episode. But yeah, we were kind of saying, like, they're no longer waivers, right? What would we call this? Like, fantasy playoff prep at this point?
Pretty much, because, you can still edit your roster, and a lot of people have kind of checked out, I find, in a lot of leagues at this point. So you never know, like, what additions or what roster moves you're going to be able to make. All right, let's get into QB, as always. And I feel like the guy you're about to talk about is a guy we've talked about a lot over the past few weeks on the show. It kind of speaks to the fact that it's been a little shaky in terms of the streaming down the stretch here.
Yeah, I feel like it's always one of us talks about this guy as the top streamer, and it's Trevor Lawrence. Still available in 48% of leagues, so roughly half of them. I think the best streamer that came along recently was Jacoby Brissett. It was that week against the Cowboys where it looked like Kyler Murray was going to return, but I was like, stranger things have happened. You might as well stash Jacoby and see what happens. And sure enough, he's been starting ever since, completing, 30 passes a game since then. So Jacoby's, long gone in most formats, but Lawrence is still sitting there in half the leagues. And it seems like every week he's right on my fringe, like QB1, QB2 ranking. There's 4 teams on bye this week, so that helps a bit. But he's coming off just another solid, if unspectacular, 230 yards, 2 touchdown game, while chipping in 25 rushing yards. And this week, it's a tougher matchup against the Colts, but if anything, you might have to drop back to pass a bit more here. This could be a potential shootout against the Colts, assuming, Daniel Jones is a bit healthier this week. But once again, Lawrence opens the week as my QB 12. So he's just always been kind of that steady streamer type option all season.
Yeah, and, I thought it was going to be more like just straight up tush push, but, I think one of the things that was the, like kind of advantages to drafting him coming into the year was he was probably going to get more rushing production. Like that's what Liam Cohen did with Mayfield, and it's kind of happening with Lawrence too. His rushing touchdown rate, I believe, is around 8% or a little higher than that. So that's really good for a quarterback, and I think that's what's getting him home some of these weeks. I'm gonna go with Tyrod Taylor here. CJ Stroud is also close, but I mean that matchup is just really tough. Their implied total is, what is it? Sub 20 in this matchup. So I'm gonna go with Tyrod here, who's available in 96% of leagues. I think I would start him even if maybe CJ has technically a little higher of a floor, but I don't know if he really does in this matchup. So Tyrod against Miami, I think that's a pretty solid matchup. It is a divisional matchup, so you never know, but Tyrod looked good last week, did give the Jets some life in a 27-point outburst, and he does have new receivers, so that's always a positive when you're kind of looking back at this team's full season numbers. Regardless of the quarterback's not good, but Mitchell and Mechie give them a little something more, I think, especially with because Wilson's been out most of the year. So Tyrod Taylor, don't feel great about it, but CJ Stroud, he didn't really run last week at all. Yeah. So it's one of those things where he could just bounce back and be fine. And it could be maybe, a shootout or something like that, but it could also just be like another 20-17 type of situation. So I'd rather go with Taylor. I just think there's a wider range of outcomes, which is what you want in this spot.
Yeah, he's they're dropping back to pass more with him than with Justin Fields under center. He's still going to scramble a ton. I like his 2 up-and-coming receivers. So, yeah, he's my QB 15 this week. I think he definitely has a nice floor-ceiling combo.
All right, let's go to running back. Who do you like there?
I feel like we talk about the same backs this week, so I'll switch it up this week. I'll be the Bayshall Tootin guy. Still available in 56% of leagues, which is crazy because even as, ETN's backup, he's still seeing a big enough workload to offer RB3 flex value, especially this week when there's 4 teams on a bye. Both he and ETN struggled on the ground against the Titans, which is usually a great matchup, but both struggled. But it was, Tootin who got the 2-yard score. Again, he's seeing enough work right now as is. But, if ETN were to miss time, with the fantasy playoffs coming up, Tootin would be like a high-end RB2 in my rankings. And he could get there even without an ETN injury. Like, this is probably more of a hot hand situation than people realize. And just ETN's been really good this year. But, any given week, Tootin can end up, being the lead back. He's been playing well enough. So I think he's the type of backup I like to have, on my bench or possibly starting this week heading into the fantasy playoffs. Again, this is my weekly reminder that Blake Corum is still out there in 84% of leagues. I was going to potentially mention like a Chris Rodriguez Jr. type, who I think is, sneaky right now, but even he's offering similar value to Corum, even as the backup. And last week, Kyron, he got knocked out of the game, I think for just like a drive, and Corum went just batshit crazy. He ended with 7 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown as the clear backup. It was actually the first game this season a back has had 7 or more touches where he had 100% success rate. So again, Blake Corum is really good as well. So it was just crazy to think, like, when Kyron was in, on the sideline getting attended to, I mean, Blake Corum would have been atop every waiver wire article. Use the rest of your fab budget, do whatever it takes to get him. And I'm just saying, instead of waiting for that to potentially happen, just have him on your bench right now. You could even start him at times. So just heading into the fantasy playoffs, there's nobody with higher upside that's so widely available than Blake Corum right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it also kind of, funny enough, shows the importance of, with running backs, you kind of have to adjust their carries by drive and all that kind of stuff, because if you're not aware of that, like a guy could get like 7 carries on one drive and you think he's like getting a 30% market share or something. But Sean McVay was like, no, we're just going back to the old thing. But I agree. I think Tyler Algier, I think Corum and Tyler Algier, who's the guy you always mentioned. So I'll just bring him up off the top just because he's, I was surprised to see he's still available in about a little over 50% of leagues as well. But Chris Rodriguez is the guy that I do want to talk about just because he's still available in 3 out of every 4 leagues. And he is technically the Commanders' starting running back right now. I know their quarterbacks run a lot and they do mix in 3 backs and Debo sometimes. So it's not necessarily like a high volume role, but he's been pretty efficient most of the year to even get that job in the first place. Bill was the talk of the preseason essentially, and then Rodriguez I think started over him in that first matchup and outplayed him, and he's probably been doing that in practice too to get that role this late in the year. So he was the guy who had about 52% of the backfield carries last week, and that's usually right around what the Washington starter has. So that was Bill's role that just like Treylon Burks has kind of taken over in that wide receiver room. I think Rodriguez is going to continue here in this backfield. So like him, it was a tough matchup last week, but I still haven't projected. This week it's at Minnesota, so still kind of a shaky matchup. But Minnesota's been so bad that Washington is favored as we record this. So I have Rodriguez as a fringe top 25 running back in this spot. 4 teams on bye, so might adjust him a bit depending on how I go with that spread, because he is very game script depending. Doesn't catch many passes, but still a guy that needs to be rostered down the stretch. All right, wide receiver. Who do we like?
Yeah, I like Jaden Higgins, who's available in 65% of leagues right now against the Chiefs. But I was high on him heading into the season. He was their 2nd-round pick. I thought he'd be a starter right away, but he got off to a really slow start. He was playing, behind Xavier Hutchinson. He was more of like Nico Collins' backup than anything. But he's really emerged over these past few weeks. He's pretty much the clear number 2 wide receiver for the Texans right now. And since week 10, he's averaged a 60% routes run rate. but he's commanding a whopping 29% target rate. So that's been the most important thing to see with him. But his playing time has plenty of room to go up. So if he can get up, in that 8% range, he'd probably be offering, pretty solid wide receiver 3 value on a weekly basis, if not more. So he's a guy that's, trending up right at the, perfect time heading to the fantasy playoffs. Sometimes, rookie wide receivers get off to a slower start and then they just tear it up towards the end of the season. So he's a guy that I'm not a big fan of just adding guys from the waiver wire to, just plug and play at wide receiver, but he is certainly trending that direction. And one guy that I think you could probably trust in your lineups as soon as this week would be our guy, Adonai Mitchell, still available in 98% of leagues. He's always had the talent. Sometimes he's had some infuriating plays, namely that, potential 80-yard touchdown where he dropped the ball right before he got in the end zone. And I had him on our touchdown show, of course. But the important thing to remember is, he was able to, draw a downfield target. He was able to catch it 40 yards downfield. He was able to juke not one, but 2 defenders to even get in the position of potentially scoring. And then he dropped the ball. It was a knucklehead play. But not many people can do the first 2/3 of that sequence. So, he's on a new team, the Jets now. He's getting plenty of opportunity. He actually had a 98% routes run rate last week, so he is clearly a full-time player. But he's still commanding a ton of targets. He's had a 27% target rate on the Jets. So eventually when he does, figure out how to catch the ball, like last week, we have an eruption game of 8 catches, 100-plus yards, and a score. So this week, he actually opens up as my wide receiver 24 here against the Dolphins. So I think unless and until, Garrett Wilson returns, I think he is going to probably be offering wide receiver 3 value, if not more, going forward.
Yeah, and how high do you have him over Mechie? Because Mechie is also he's been in that same kind of route department, and he did have the 2 straight games with the touchdown, so just curious.
Yeah, I have him wide receiver 36. I think, he's more of a high floor play. I think there's still a pretty run-heavy offense, so he's a guy that probably requires more volume. I think he has 2 touchdowns, though, on the Jets. I think they were a little bit flukier. I like him as a talent, but I think AD is still getting those, downfield targets, those targets that more likely to turn into touchdowns, and probably the more boom bust option. So it kind of depends what you're looking for. But yeah, I think both guys are, sort of in that wide receiver flex, if not more, discussion already.
Yeah, last week the targets were around the same. It's just like one guy had 100, like 100 yards, the other guy had like 20 yards. So it can always flip around. But I agree. I think Mitchell's definitely the higher upside and higher downside guy.
Yeah,
but you only
sure.
care about the upside this much time left in the year. I'm looking at Isaac Teslaw. He's still available in 98% of leagues, right? Here we go. Amon-Ra, they're not closing the door as we record this, but it doesn't look great for him. And then Khalif Raymond was already ruled doubtful. So you're looking at Teslaw essentially getting that whole role that he was splitting between himself and Raymond, or just getting the Amon-Ra, or Jameson gets the Amon-Ra, he gets the James, whatever it is, he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver almost certainly. And even if he's the number 3, they don't use their tight ends because they've been banged up. So and just not. You got who do you got there? Ross Dwelly, Ferkser, and Brock Wright. So you're gonna have
Hayden Rucci.
Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna have receivers running routes, and Teslaw is almost certainly going to be out there. Probably 90% plus of the time, no matter who gets ruled in and out, unless it's like Amon-Ra just a full 100%. Which still he could still be a 90% guy because that's what him and Raymond have kind of been doing as of late with all the tight end injuries. So one way or another, this guy it's time. It is time.
I nearly fainted when you said Teslaw is going to get a 90% routes run rate. He'd still be contender for Cardio King though, right?
I don't actually think so, because here's the thing with Cardio King. Here's the thing with what would happen. the Lions would go with a lot more like Dan Skipper and just guys who are even less likely than Tesla. Because like if you're J-Mo, Amon-Ra, Gibbs, and then like Montgomery or even Raymond, whoever else is out there, the tight end, Laporta was out there most of the year, was like, of course you're going to be the number 5 read and number 5 target.
Right.
Unless the tight end or Gibbs blocks, which is rare. So unless Montgomery's out, it's got to be a very specific personnel group for Tesla not to be like the 4 or was this the last read in the progression.
Right.
So now, I mean, he has the upside to be the third on. He's upside to be second. It's second to third in most of them, because I'm sure they're looking at Gibbs more than like almost every other team looks to their running back. But yeah, it's
like how often do you think Goff even like gets to his third read? It seems like if his first 2 reads aren't there, he panics and gets sacked or dumps it off to Gibbs. Like Tesla just never had a chance. He was always, like you said, 4th or 5th in the pecking order. Goff doesn't really give those kind of guys a chance. But yeah, if he's top 3 this game, could get peppered with a ton of targets.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things where sometimes the raw numbers aren't going to show it because of those, unless you're like really clocking those added lineman snaps to the passing tree, because they're almost never getting targeted. I mean, I guess Skipper probably has a couple, but yeah, that's gonna just bump up everybody. So could be a monster. I mean, it will be a monster game for J-Mo as well. But and then some other guy I wanted to mention, I should say, is Devon Vele on the Saints, because he is now their number 2 wide receiver behind Chris Olave, and against the Bucs, that could be valuable. The Bucs have struggled against wide receivers. They gave up a lot to Harrison early on, ended up kind of rebounding, didn't allow much to Wilson, but I think that works in Vele's favor because Harrison's technically the number 2 receiver in that game against the Bucs last week. So Vele, he's been trending up, starting to turn some of those opportunities into production, and I think that's only going to continue. So I see ECR has Tyler Shuck as the QB 18, which is a little rich for me, but if you like him as a QB 18, I think Vele should be a lot higher than 46th in wide receiver rank. He should crack the top 40 at least in that situation, because he's getting a ton of work, and I think that's going to continue. Given, you got Tipton there, you got a bunch of tight ends, but you got Tipton, Austin, and who is it? Dante Pettis. Those are your other 3 receivers after Shaheed and Cooks departed. So could be a nice close to the season for Vele. Not a rookie, but he is a guy that they did trade for right at the beginning of the year. So could be treading up here for the remainder. Tight end, who do we like?
Going back to the Harold Fannin Jr. Available in 67% of leagues. Had another solid 3-catch, 43-yard touchdown game last week. He's just been consistent all year long, and I was disappointed they didn't trade away David Njoku and really give him the full tight end share here. But even though they didn't trade him, they're still just letting it rip with Fannin, especially these last couple weeks. Last week he saw a season high 93% routes run rate. Not much more you could ask for from a tight end. It doesn't even matter that Njoku's there at that point. So he's up to 87% route run rate the last 2 weeks. Just been consistently targeted all season long. He's been targeted on 23% of his routes, and it's pretty much on a weekly basis. He's getting roughly a quarter of the time he's out there, he's getting a target. So this week, good matchup against the Titans. So he opens up as my tight end 10. So I think he's a must add where you can.
Yeah, and it's another one of those things that it comes with context, right? Because most tight ends, if we're trying to they're trending up, they're not going to be good enough to be like the number 1 target tight end in their room, so they're going to be competing with the other tight ends. But really, Fannon's not really competing with Njoku at this point. I feel like Fannin is like his own entity. He's like Brock Bowers to Mayer. Like Mayer can fluctuate, and Bowers will be at 90% no matter what in terms of the snaps almost, except in the preseason, which is why Chip Kelly is fired now. But usually what you see is it's just like a separate position. Miami, they do that when they have a guy they like Waller or or Jonnu. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about Njoku. And he's been trending down anyway. I mean, they have been giving him less snaps, but I don't really think they're competing at this point. I mean,
Right.
no, he's not competing with anyone because it's like, I mean, what do we got? Like Isaiah Bond, Jerry Jeudy. These guys are just terrible. So
yeah, and Shador got pissed at Judy, like basically told him, get out of here. So Fannin's his guy.
Yeah, as he should have been. I mean, I think it was week 1. He caught like 6-7 balls right off the rip. So
yeah,
I think the coaching staff knew what it was. So we love him. And the other guy is, I think I mentioned him last week as well on the show, Brenton Strange, still available in 2/3 of leagues and continues to be a consistent part of this Jaguar passing offense. Had a touchdown last week, had 93 yards the week before that. Has pretty consistent guy in terms of catching 4 or more balls per game, which is usually what you want to get to if you're looking for consistency from week to week. So down the stretch, I think he could be another one of these guys who just kind of comes on and helps people out if they ended up picking him up. So I wouldn't jump off the Brenton Strange train just yet, unless. But even with Fannin, I mean, you think the floor is lower with Fannin just because of Shador, or do you think it's still higher just because of the routes?
Not really, because first of all, Dylan Gabriel sucked too. So it's not like this is some major downgrade. Fair, if anything, he's probably better in my opinion. Yeah. Although we'll talk about Max Brosmer at some point in the near future.
It's not.
But I digress. But no, Fannin, like I said, Fannin has just consistently been producing week in, week out, which is kind of rare for a tight end that's available in 2/3 of leagues. So yeah, I just think Fannin just has proven that he has a high floor despite the quarterback play. Yeah,
I mean, he's still probably I would say the favorite every week now, right? To lead that team in yardage. I mean, Jeudy has been so bad that it's just really a matter of like if Shador has one of those games where he has like 50 passing yards or something, which I think is in the range.
Well, yeah, that's the problem, right? They could get away with Judkins is running it 35 times here. But the total is 33 right now, so still not like a great spot. But Fannin's kind of overcome that week in, week out.
All right, defense, special teams. What we got?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Buccaneers here. Available in 72% of leagues. They face the Saints this week. They're actually coming off a game. They had a league high 24 pressures. Jacoby Brissett was under pressure on 53% of his dropbacks, but the Bucs only got 2 sacks. So in my sack lunch model, they're probably popping to bounce back this week with more sacks because they had 5 different players with at least 4 pressures. Which is always good. You have a handful of guys just, racking up pressures. So I could see them, getting 3+ sacks here against Tyler Shough. He has, the 7th highest pressure to sack rate in the league this year. So they open up as my number 3 defense. But for my tiers piece this week, I'm actually going to just look at, fancy playoff schedules. And I noticed the Bucs play the Falcons, Panthers, and Dolphins the rest of the way. So, that's a pretty good rest of season schedule. I'll have to see who has the best one. But, if you had the Buccaneers this week, you could be using them throughout the playoffs as well. So they seem like a good short and long-term option. But they open up as my number 3 defense this week against the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely do. I'm sure they have a lower pressure to sack rate than average because they just blitz a lot.
Right.
But yeah, coming after some of these quarterbacks that don't really move around. I mean, you're gonna have Tua. You said Tua and Cousins, and who's Bryce Young was the other one. That's a pretty good. If you want to get some sacks, those former 2 guys. Bryce Young, I think he's been okay.
He's been one of the toughest quarterbacks to sack this year. But he has that ankle injury, but didn't he rip off like a 40-yard run? So I don't buy that.
Every quarterback with an injury always does. Every quarterback that's got, you just got to factor in like a long scramble for every quarterback that pops up on the injury report.
Yeah, is Tyler Shough going to evade another sack and, rush for 20+ yards again this week? You can't keep getting away with it.
It's ridiculous. I still have his an expected yardage of 8 yards per game. And
I think the last 2 weeks will help boost up his rushing yard prop.
Yep,
might be on the under there.
I'm going with the Titans. I mean, I think kind of have to start them at this point. It's dicey. Obviously, they're on the road. They're not very good, but they're available everywhere. The total in this game is 33, and they're only 3.5, 4-point underdogs, and they'll probably close around that, if not lower. So, and Shedeur Sanders in a game where Cleveland's not really expected to pass. So, I think you got to take the Titans here. It's going to be ugly, but at worst, you should just get a low, like you should get some bonus points for like holding the opponent under whatever it is, 21. But at best, you should get some sacks and some turnovers as well. And this Titan defense has been trending up a little bit as of late, as they've gotten healthier and kind of figured some things out. But Callahan's out, so maybe that had an impact on the other side of the ball as well. He was the head coach. I know we think about him more just on the offense, but it could be both sides of the ball with the guy that was that bad. So yeah, I think the Titans are gonna. I'd play them if they were available. I have them number 4 in terms of rankings.
Yeah,
I do have the Bucks higher. Higher, but
yeah,
it's hard to get away from the Titans. In a game with a total of 33 now. If I end up looking at it and I'm like, nah, you know what, I'm going to bump it up a little more, then maybe they drop. But they'd still be inside my top 10 almost certainly against Shedeur Sanders and just entire Browns offense, home or road, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, like 95% of streaming defense is just about the matchup. It's not like the Broncos are available against the Raiders anyway. So if you're streaming defenses, you're kind of picking from shitty defenses. But yeah, the Titans defense has been playing a lot better. They actually held the Jaguars like on a handful of drives, but just like a dumb penalty extended it. I don't know if you saw some of those, but they just
they had
so
the kickoff play or whatever it was. Like they gave the ball right back. Yeah, just like a number of
the punt
in a bad position. Yeah.
Wasn't there like a roughing the kicker on the punt, and then like they had an offsides on 3rd and 5? Then they got a stop, and oh my god, they was so close to like having a good game, but. I guess those same players that committed those penalties will still be there this week. But like you said, the defense itself has been playing better of late.
Yeah, I mean, they're just doing typical things that like a 1-win team does.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean, they can still do things in between those things. And the Browns are just as bad. I mean, I guess they're twice as good. What are they? Twice as good technically? 4 times good? But
yeah.
How many wins do the Browns have? Let's see. 3. Okay, 3. I knew it was like, it's like 4, but yeah, no.
Might be 4 after this week. We'll see.
Yeah, I gotta ask Nick Giffen what the overtime model is saying. Because I feel like just could be like if there's ever a chance for a scoreless tie, and this would have to be the highest odds since the what is that Aiden O'Connell Minnesota game
Vikings
like 3-0
Vikings Raiders.
Yeah.
Didn't they kick a field goal like to end the game?
Was it to end the game, or was it just like 3-0 for like the entire game? It was one or the other.
No, they went to overtime.
Oh, it did. Okay, yeah.
And then I think we were wondering, like, oh my god, is this going to end 0-0 tie? And then the next week, Aiden O'Connell led them to 68 points or whatever on Thursday Night Football. So
anyone who's ever said regression doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was like the second highest of the like generation, right? Outside of that Mike McDaniel 70.
Yeah.
Or he
but it was off,
it
was off of a historically bad game too.
Yeah. It's I mean,
so what I'm trying to say is give Max Brosmer another shot. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know if I could do it, man. It just felt the same as McCarthy, honestly. Like with a guy, with a guy I had more respect for because he hasn't played as much to lose as much. All right, kicker. Who do we like for week 14?
Well, until he's no longer available and over 50% of leagues, I'm gonna stick with Harrison Mevis, the thicker kicker, at Arizona this week. So set indoors. And he's coming off a game where he only had 4 extra points, but that's kind of my thing with the Rams kicker is that's basically his floor. They just scored too many touchdowns, so he's going to get 4 to 5 points off of those. But like we saw, the previous week, sometimes they're going to stall and let him, kick longer field goals. I think he has a tremendous leg. He's 2 for 2 in his career. One of them is longer than 50 yards. So I think he's a great kicker. But the thing is, they play indoors 3 of the next 4 games. Their only outdoor game being at Seattle, so weather permitting, that could be a game where the Rams actually stall a little bit more, and we get a few field goal attempts from him. So I like Nevis this week. He's my number 4 kicker, I believe, to open the week. A very high floor ceiling combo, being the Rams kicker right now. But again, the next 4 weeks, he's going to be indoors 75% of the time, which I think is huge. Not having to worry about weather.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at this point, like you have to target the kickers like that. That's like the tiebreaker kind of thing. But there's certain times when kickers are just available that their team's just expected to score a lot of points, and that's still going to be, that's accounted for in that projection. There is going to be some variance in terms of, does a team maybe forego certain field goals, but that's also being taken into account because you're still less likely to score a touchdown if you would have kicked a field goal that you're now not kicking. You know what I mean? So it all kind of balances out, which is a long way to say Matt Prater would be the guy that I would still add. He hasn't been great this year, but he actually has a slight lead as the kicker 1 in my model because the Bills, are playing the Cincinnati Bengals. And I mean, that defense, they're going to go up and down the field. Now, could they pull a Mevis and just score only touchdowns? Maybe, but you can't always count on that. And again, you said it's outdoors, which could actually help, limit some of that. So one way or another, Matt Prater, I mean, that's disgusting. That is so
What's up
disgusting.
with Tyler Bass? Is he just done for the year?
He's done for the year, yeah. A couple of guys, I think, they got their window opened or they didn't get it open or whatever. But either way, yeah, I saw something that he was going to be out for the remainder of the year. So Prater's going to be kicking. They won't attempt as many, long field goals with him, but he still has multiple attempts in 4 of the last 5 games. So he's still, if he can get to 2 attempts, he's going to make most of them because he's not attempting terribly long ones. So, like him this week against this Bengals defense that didn't look good until they faced Lamar Jackson, I guess, which go figure. That's what it's week 14. Weird things are happening, but hopefully everybody out there is, like I said, in playoff position or just long gone, so you don't even have to worry about this shit right now. But that's going to do it for the Fantasy Flex for week 14. We will be back with the player projections episode and our DFS episode later in the week. And then, of course, we have our touchdown show with Jill Gallant over on the Action Network podcast on Thursday. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. Also, be sure to follow Playbook as well. Until next time, let's get this money.